explained to you, the entrance change at the rectory that involves changing the door and adding an awning.
And both of the previous applications were completed and are in full use, by the way. Thank you.
And they're quite successful in our view. On the left, you'll see a photo of the location where the entrance door to the rectory building is currently located. On the right, you'll see a plan showing the situation of the building relative to Park Avenue and its juxtaposition to the church building, which is just immediately to the north. Two views looking north and south on Park Avenue. What you're seeing is the entrance to the rectory. It's sort of understated and not very prominent. It includes an existing factory manufactured door that includes some insulated etched leaded glass. The photos on the left, at the lower left, is the inspiration for the metal grillage that we've chosen to incorporate in the doorway entrance. And the photo on the lower right is a detail of the actual entrance that is currently used to enter the rectory building, the public as well as residents. It was originally the entrance to the lower level of the rectory, which was not the primary level. The primary level of entrance was the piano nobile, which is the window location where there's currently the raised letters that say Parish House, which was modified in the late 60s, as we understand.
It was a full flight of stairs.
I'm sorry?
It was a full stoop.
Yeah, it's important to note, Mick has reminded me, I failed to mention that there was a large monumental stoop that was wrapping around to the center entrance of the building. That is long gone. We are trying to find historic photographs of that location, but this is currently the location as it is situated.
When 42nd Street, when the New York Central was widened, they took off the stoop.
Okay. So what we're planning on doing is still entering at the same location, but just modifying the doors that were never historic in their current context, but functional and served. One important aspect that Father Yasalona wants to incorporate is he would like for there to be a line of sight from the sidewalk entrance into the rectory building, and there would be a display at the opposite end of the vestibule entry. What you see here is a plan, the secondary door, and the location where there is a crucifix located that one would get a glimpse of as they passed by. There's no significant change, just a change to the actual door leaf and side lights. The configuration of which is proposed here. It would incorporate a low-profiled, understated awning to protect residents and occupants of the building and visitors as they enter and exit the building. Its configuration would be a single leaf, 3 feet wide, which would be ADA compliant. That would be the extension of our previous application that included the ramp that you see on the left in elevation. Here's a detail of the final appearance with the awning. We would like to use sort of the typical sort of Park Avenue sort of nomenclature for the awning. We'd like to use brass sleeves over the steel tubes, a low profile gray fascia matching the limestone, so it sort of melts away, doesn't become a feature in and of itself. We'd like to include some metal grill work that is taking the inspiration from some of the window grills that are on the building. that I showed you earlier. So it's just a few steps down that's accessed from either the ramp or the few steps. And it looks, as you see in the center location there, with one single leaf and a lot of glass and slide lights. The color, we'd like to use a Cabernet sort of rich wine-colored paint for the actual doors, and then clear glass, allowing for a glimpse into the building. Looking to the upper left center, you'll see two photos of the door as proposed in the context that is the building today. Still centrally located. The awning is there, but it is, not given a color or prominence other than the fact that it has to have a projection from the face of the building. Lower left-hand corner, you'll see our rendering, an insert rendering of the actual configuration of the door, and then a detail of the door with the awning, and you'll see we're looking to use a gray colored fabric and the wine colored door in the upper right-hand corner. And that is what is being proposed by the pastor for entrance and exiting into the rectory building.
At the presentation?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. We'll hear from the public. Is there anybody who would like to comment?
If you're a member of the public and you'd like to comment, you can raise your virtual hand. You can do that by going to the participants button at the bottom of your screen. If you are using an older version of Zoom, if you're using a newer version, you can go to the reactions button at the bottom of your screen and selecting raise hand. No raised hands from the public so far, David.
All right, well, let's go to the committee and let's just start at the beginning alphabetically.
Okay. Elizabeth, confirm unmuting.
I'm afraid I can understand David perfectly. I could understand maybe 1 in 15 words that the architect, I'm going by pictures, so I would prefer to wait and hear what my colleagues said, because I saw the pictures, but I couldn't, I'm afraid he came out, the architect came out pretty unintelligible. So I will wait to hear from my colleagues.
No problem. Michelle, confirm unmuting.
Yeah, thank you. Couple of questions. Did you in any way change the dimensions of the door?
The masonry opening, no. The door leaf size, yes. We need to comply with ADA requirements for minimum width. And there is only a 5'8" masonry opening. So we did change the size of the door and the configuration of the door, which was a double leaf, acting leaf, and a fixed leaf. Well, now we have a single active leaf with 2 side lights.
So let me just make sure I understood that. So the actual cutout of the masonry is the same as it was before.
Absolutely.
But because that door, the door itself was a smaller dimension, it was not handicap compliant. So all you did was readjust the door versus the side panels to make the swinging door, the opening door, handicap compliant. Did I understand that?
That is correct.
Yes.
Okay. Your main change aesthetically is going from this manufactured etched glass to the single pane with the side lights. Is that correct? That's your main change?
That is
All right.
correct.
Okay. The other main change is introducing the awning. Did I hear you say that when you took the actual picture that the awning is already there?
No, it is not.
Oh, I'm sorry. I guess you meant it was there on the picture. I guess that was a mock-up. Okay, that's what I wanted to know. I have to say, honestly, what's the dimensions of the awning before I make my comment?
It's about 8 foot square.
Okay,
The fascia dimension is about 10 inches.
okay. I have to say, I could support the door because you need it for accessibility. I fully understand that. I have to say, the awning does not sit well with me. I understand why every entrance might want an awning, you know, for the comfort of people coming in and out with umbrellas. But apparently behind this door, you do have some kind of an anteroom. And I think aesthetically, it crowds the existing space. And it just looks as though it were inappropriately superimposed. I prefer it to have no awning. And again, at the very, very least, but that's not part of your application, just a tiny little overhang. But at the application as presented, because of the awning, I would have to oppose. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Leda?
Sure, thanks, Saida. Well, I'm thinking I agree with Michelle because the facade is special the way it is, and because I live near there, so I see it all the time. I'm not sure, but in any event, I think the brass poles are horrible and don't go at all with a gray and white building. If you're going to do the awning, and again, I'm not sure, I think the poles should be some kind of gray metal or black metal. The brass, especially that it's, I don't know if it's solid over the steel, but it will just, it will really stick out. And then I'm not sure if you have some kind of LED sign. I couldn't tell from your drawing, and I wasn't sure if I heard that.
No
On the
signage.
inside, on the inside.
No signage.
Okay, because I also would like to say that you've come to this board a lot, and we've always been very, I think, gracious and have given you what you wanted. But those signs on the side of the entrance to the church itself are really bright. They're not even the same sign, so they just take a lot of attention, a lot of light at night. As I said, I live near there, I see it all the time, and I'd really ask if there could be some consideration for the neighbors and just tone down the brightness and have this at least consistent images on both of them. I know that's not what's before us, but I think that was the fourth thing or the third thing. This is the fourth. Anyway, that's what I'm thinking. I agree that the door is much more tasteful and much more suiting the period of the building. Thank you.
Hi, this is Sarah. I think the door is lovely, and I like the red against, or the burgundy, I think you said it was, against the gray facade. I like how it catches the eye, and I was wondering, was the form of the awning perhaps to create an awning that assisted with the visibility of the door? Is that why the design was as I guess kind of clean and simple as it is?
To answer your question, the genesis of the awning happened like this. We did the door, and the pastor said, gee, I would like an awning. I said, okay, that's going to get controversial. Let me decide to do something very simple. And we did this very simple overhang awning that was further back and diminished from the facade, or you know, much smaller. And our advice from LPC staff was to do something more traditionally expected to be seen on Park Avenue, with the poles, with the brass, and of a shape that it was not gable or rounded. And so we settled on this, what we believed to be the most innocuous, unnoticeable shape possible, employing color for one to match that of the stone, so it doesn't become an entity in and of itself. So that's how the awning has come to be, and that's why it looks the way it is, and it comes out as forward as much as it does, because we're doing it in a way where we don't attach to the building at all. We are going down with posts that go to the pavement and the stone wall, rather than the building, and that was something that the LPC staff thought was beneficial and more sensitive and considerate of the original historic fabric. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's a really helpful answer. Aesthetically, I think the awning, it impacts the view of this beautiful building, and I appreciate that your design was meant to minimize its appearance, and that this is just a difficult thing to design in. And so I'm not sure how I feel about having the awning there, but at the same time, I very much appreciate the reason why the applicant would want an awning there. So I guess I will look forward to hearing from my colleagues what they think about the awning. So thank you very much.
Yeah, if I could just add, it's important to note that the awning does not, as an as of right item of revocable consent, it does not extend out to within 18 inches of the curb line as an awning could. It is all within the property line of the rectory. Just so you understand that. It's as big as it needs to be, but as small as we can get it, without attaching to the building.
Thank you. Anthony?
Oh, okay. Thank you. And thank you, Saida. I think that this, first of all, the easy part. I think the door is fine. I think being able to actually get to this entrance via wheelchair is important, and being able to use it. So all of that I think is wonderful. And I too have trouble with the awning, and partly because it doesn't feel as, and I'll explain why, it doesn't feel at all, it feels stuck on and doesn't feel as though it has any real relationship to the building or its architecture. It's just the sort of minimal thing, the least you could do to keep the rain off. And that frankly seems to me like either too much or frankly not enough. And I think that this building has a kind of exuberant architecture, even though it wasn't really exuberant in its day, but certainly compared to the rest of Park Avenue, it has a kind of exuberance that is lacking in a lot of the buildings, even the school to the south of it. And losing the stoop has turned it into really a very planar event, And you're sort of calling out the entrance with the, the entrance is called out previously by the sort of light poles to either side of that little entrance piece. And it just feels as though, on the one hand, yes, it would be great to have an awning. On the other hand, it feels to me sort of like, if you're going to do it, it should have been somehow felt more exuberant and more in keeping with the kind of feeling of the building, rather than trying to make it the most modest awning on Park Avenue. And I definitely agree with Alita's point, which I hadn't even thought of, that if you're going to do it, the brass is the wrong material, because it isn't anywhere except the kick plate on the door, and even that I would probably wonder about. I'm not sure how I can fall out on this, because I think certainly the project in its essentials is fine. I think I'm done.
Okay. May, you can confirm unmuting.
No questions from me. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, May. Marco?
Oh, thank you. You said that the opening for the window for the door is 5 feet 8 inches. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you said that. Before to go over there, I want to say something. I think your graphics are creative, and I think it's in some way they are beautiful, but I think the graphic should be bigger so we can appreciate better. And going to the ADA compliance, I have right here the ADA, and the minimum clear distance is the minimum clear width is 32 inches. So two leaves is 64. So you still have 4 inches, 2 inches in each side, which is apparently the dimensions that you have in the frame. So your argument that you change it in that direction, I think is wrong. Let me finish. Let me finish.
Excuse me. I'll give you a chance. Let him finish, then you can
Okay.
respond.
So, however, I'm going to mention your proposed design is acceptable, and I think is attractive, and I think it makes a lot of sense. But your argument of 88 is wrong. But I think I'm going to support the door in the way that is proposed, and I think I found it a good composition. The only thing that made me feel a little bit uncomfortable is it's true that you just touched the door, but I would like to see in the whole context of the facade, because that tells us if it really fits your ideas of your beautiful design within the context of the facade. With respect to the awning, I think Anthony mentioned very well. Anthony described what is the point. It's true also that you one of the parts is missing. You are claiming that the awning is within the lot line. There is no drawing that showing that part. So this is basically, I found the application a little bit incomplete, even though the drawings are beautiful. I found it unclear in that position to make a better evaluation. Yes, I will support the U door. I think it's a good composition, but I'm still losing within the main context of the building. And I think that's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next will be Christina. Confirm unmuting.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I certainly am in support of the doors. I don't believe I can support the awning. I think in becoming nothing, it became something. And I think it's too square, and it just doesn't, I'm not in support of the awning. Otherwise, the project is excellent. Thank you.
You confirm unmuting.
Thank you, Saida. I agree with everything Christina just said, so I have no further questions to add.
Let's circle back to Elizabeth.
Yes, I think from what people have said and what I can see here, that I would also support the door and not support the awning. So perhaps we ought to have two resolutions.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. David, Michelle raised her hand as well.
Michelle, you've had your chance. I hope this is important.
Well, the
Michelle?
fact that I want to mention it, I think it is. I wanted to suggest that while it won't prevent me from voting affirmative for the door, if in fact we do divide, I too was struck by the kick plate and would suggest that it be black to match the ironworks around it. That's my comment.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have to agree with my fellow committee members. I don't feel that the awning is appropriate. I think the doors are fine. I too would prefer a black kick plate. The brass just looks too out of place. But that would not prevent me from voting for the doors. You can rethink that yourselves and decide what to do in the end. And maybe you'll even get the awning approved. But it sounds to me like we need two resolutions. Much as I hate to split, we'll have two resolutions, but I need people to propose them. Will somebody propose a resolution?
As far as the kick plate is concerned, that can definitely be changed. There's no commitment to the brass. It can be changed and it could also be absent completely, and it can just be the same Cabernet color of the door.
Well,
well,
you've heard all our comments. It's not a discussion anymore. We leave it to your judgment based on all our comments, what you want to do in the future. But we now need resolutions, we need to vote, and we need to go on to the next application. So I need a resolution or two resolutions at the same time.
We have multiple
Anthony?
hands raised. Okay.
Anthony?
Yeah, thank you, David. I'll do two. The first being a motion to approve the doors, and the second being a motion to disapprove the canopy. Awning, rather. Disapprove the awning.
And do I have a second? Elizabeth, you're the second? Or Michelle, you're seconding it. Thank you.
I'm seconding it.
Thank you. Okay, Saida, if you would please call the roll on approving the door.
Okay. I'm going
We have
to
to do them separately because one is an approval, one's a disapproval.
Okay. Give me 1 second while I unmute everyone.
First
The door,
resolution is to
yes.
approve the door.
Yes for the door.
Okay, 1 second, Michelle. Elizabeth?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Alita?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Okay, Anthony?
Oh, yes, sorry.
Okay, May?
Yes.
Christina?
Yes.
Kimberly?
Yes.
And David?
Yes.
Okay. We have 9 in approval. Okay, and the second resolution to disapprove the awning. Elizabeth?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Alita?
Yes.
Sarah?
No te pases de ahí.
Oh, you muted yourself. Okay. Sarah?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anthony?
Yes.
May?
For the record, no.
Christina?
Yes.
Kimberly?
Yes.
And David?
Yes.
8 in approval, 1 in opposition. All right, David, you
You
can go
didn't
ahead.
call me.
I didn't call you, Mark. I'm sorry.
It's
Oh,
okay.
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 What was your vote?
Yes in the first one and yes in the second one.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
It's all yes, isn't it?
One is a yes for the approval and the other one is no for yes for this approval. Thank you.
Okay, so that's 10 in approval for the first one, and
Thank
for the
you.
second one, 9 in approval, 1 in opposition. Thanks.
Okay. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very helpful. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. I'm afraid you advised the pastor correctly.
It's all right. We're okay.
I'm sure he'll still be a good friend of yours. Okay, so we're ready for the Delacorte Theater. Is the architect here?
Yes, let me go ahead and unmute their team. 1 second. Rosalind, will you be doing the presentation?
Yes, hi, I'm Rosalind Barber from the Public Theater. Thank you so much for having us.
Can you please give us your name again? I'm sorry, I just want to get it. Oh, I see it. It's on the screen. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, my name is Rosalind Barber, and I work for the Public Theater, and we produce down at 425 Lafayette Street at the Public Theater downtown, as well as at Free Shakespeare in the Park. Today, I'm joined by my colleague Stephen Chu from Eniat Architects, Julie Rosen from Higgins Quaysbarth, Elise Wagner from Kramer Levin, and our team at Kasira, all of whom are consulting with us on this phase of the project. I'm also joined by my colleague Katie Riley from New York City Parks. The public operates the Delacorte through a license agreement with the Parks Department, and we're pleased to be presenting this project to you in collaboration with them. Tonight, we're seeking a community board resolution with respect to the application to LPC for a binding report on the proposed renovation of the project. And hopefully you can all see my screen here with an image of the Delacorte.
You can see it.
Great. So for more than 60 years, the Public Theater has been a cultural and artistic destination and a vibrant force for social change. Our work is driven by the belief that culture belongs to everyone, and we strive to make the Public Theater the people's theater. Each year, we employ hundreds of artists in more than 1,000 performances. We give away over 160,000 free tickets and 1,500 free memberships, reaching an audience of more than 380,000 people from every zip code in New York City. Through our 6th theater, home on Astor Place, to our mobile unit, Joe's Pub, and Public Works programming, we reach audiences that are more ethnically, economically, and geographically diverse than average theater goers. With over 6 decades of operation, including the most recent staging of the widely acclaimed performance of Merry Wives, which you see on our screen here, Much Ado About Nothing, Hercules, and Twelfth Night, we've given away more than 5 million tickets to Free Shakespeare in the Park, and the programming there has become one of New York City's most iconic cultural experiences. So today we are presenting a renovation of the Delacorte Theater. Important to note here that this is a renovation of the existing structure, so we're taking an Alt-2 approach to this project. And the 4 main areas that we're focusing on are creating a Delacorte that's safer and more comfortable for staff, artists, and audiences, particularly folks with disabilities, because right now the theater is not very accessible for people that use wheelchairs or who have other physical disabilities. We're streamlining the backstage operations. You're not going to see a lot of that in today's presentation because this is focused on the exterior and the parts of the theater that you can see, which are evaluated by landmarks, but that work is happening as well. We're revitalizing the exterior because we know many folks come to Shakespeare in the Park, but we also know lots of folks use Central Park and might only experience the Delacorte when they're walking by, and we want this to be a value add for them as well. And we're looking to improve the theatrical infrastructure because our mission is to provide for free what people might pay hundreds of dollars to see on Broadway, and that requires consistent investment in our theatrical capabilities. So as you all know, Central Park is a scenic landmark. So a lot of our work in this design was considering the design in that context. And this is an image of the existing theater. So unfortunately, it has outlasted its current facility in almost every measurable way. And at this point, the renovation of the Delacorte is no longer optional. The deteriorating structure is in dire need of rebuilding and must be addressed, and we must address all of the core project goals that I just outlined. This is a preview of the design that we're proposing, and we're going to take you through this more fully. The design is contextual and maintains much of the Delacorte's current form, footprint, and views within the park, while creating a contemporary design aesthetic that better reflects the natural setting and achieves the project goals. But before we dive fully into the design, we want to share a brief history of the site and surrounding area we use to inform the design. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Julie Rosen.
Julie, you can confirm a muting on your end.
Hi, everyone. How are you? My colleague, Bill Higgins, is actually going to be presenting for Higgins-Quaisbarth tonight. He's on the line, so if you could give him the mic, that would be great. Thank you so much.
Okay, Bill, can you raise your hand? I don't see you in my list. Ah, I see you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry for that confusion. I'm Bill Higgins of Higgins-Quaisbarth, and I'd like to talk as briefly as possible about some of the issues of history and appropriateness and the thinking related to those that has gone into this design. These photographs kind of summarize the story with existing on the left and proposed on the right. And the story is really the first point that Rosalind made, which is that this is a renovation. It is not a demolition. It is not a replacement. It is not a change in design statement. It is really a renovation which continues the history of renovations that this building as a kind of light pavilion in the park has had since the very beginning. Next, please. So on the left, the red dot is from the 30s, showing the site before the Delacorte was built. And on the right, from about 1961, is a rendered aerial view showing the Delacorte as it was originally built and very much as it is now. A semi-cylindrical amphitheater opened to the turtle pond in the park, surrounded by the park's landscaping and pathway system, and with views to and from the Belvedere and other significant places in the park. All of these characteristics, as I hope you will see, are being retained with only minor alterations for functional reasons. Next. So these are views of the building just about the time of its construction in the early 1960s. On the left, it shows the semi-cylindrical, at this time, plywood-clad volume. It shows the approach to lighting, which is a very straightforward exposed trusses that simply do what they need to do in terms of lighting the productions with as little fuss as possible. And also you get this subtle sense with the flags and the lighting around the circumference or semi-circumference. There's always been something of a kind of celebratory quality to the theater, and something that we feel is part of its history and part of what we would like to maintain. Next. So this is a kind of New York in the 70s view. Within 20 years or so of its original construction, the theater was really in need of significant renovation. The wood elements had deteriorated. elements that did not function were really making themselves clear, little protection from the elements, and many things that you don't see, issues of lighting, issues of accessibility, et cetera, which needed to be addressed and were. Next. So here is a view in the process of the late 1970s renovation. The architect for that is seen standing on the far right. That was Giorgio Cavalieri, much revered in the world of landmarks. And I think you can see from this that the basic structure of the theater, quite simple as it was maintained. The seating itself was reinstalled, but all of the wood elements needed to be replaced, and that was done in kind. Next. There are also the entirety of the wood cladding was replaced in the late 1970s with a vertical cedar cladding instead of the plywood. You can see that there were 4 new lighting standards that were added in addition to that big truss at the back, simply because the performances just were not adequately lighted. So that's the late 1970s first renovation. Next. And through that renovation, you can see those 4 new lighting towers there in the background, and you can also see again that sort of use of flags, banners to maintain that sense of a sort of celebratory pavilion in the park. Next. So by the 1990s, the same problems had recurred. There was more deterioration. There were more evident technical and functional problems, many of them invisible, and the wood needed replacement yet again. On the left, by the way, you can see there's the canopy that goes around the building. That was actually dated to the 1970s, the Cavalieri renovation. It was rebuilt and reclad in the 1990s renovation. Next. And here we are currently. Once again, we have wood deterioration. We have functional issues, again, with lighting, with accessibility, with the sort of backstage systems that once again call for another renovation. And that is what we are proposing. Again, not a demolition, not a substitution with an adventurous new design. We do feel pretty strongly that this makes improvements not only to the function, but to the design, and also to the level of compatibility with the park. The natural texture of the wood is proposed to be intensified a little bit, as you will see. Next. And this is that kind of situation that exists now underneath, again, places that you won't see and that won't necessarily be part of the certificate of appropriateness proposal. But as I think you can see here, all sorts of work is needed in terms of structure, in terms of weather tightness, in terms of storage and backstage function. And all of that is a very crucial part of what we are proposing. Next. And then just to conclude, we looked at not something we would call precedents, but we did look at projects that have been reviewed in a park context, 2 of them in Central Park, 1 of them in Prospect Park, that have been quite rightly, we think, determined appropriate by the Landmarks Commission. These projects have involved substantial change. And in fact, in all cases, they have involved very substantial demolition of existing features and buildings, again, determined appropriate. But I want to emphasize that what we are proposing is not that kind of demolition and substitution. It is a renovation. Just briefly, and again, this is not meant for comparison, just a a sense of context. Here's the Central Park Zoo from the 1930s on the left and the 1980s renovation on the right. Very friendly to the character of the park, the open pavilions and walkways, the rich landscaping, etc. But all of this that you are seeing is new. The entire part of the zoo to the west of the pathway that separates it from the arsenal was completely replaced in the 80s. Next. Here is the Lasker Pool and Rink, also in Central Park, almost a contemporary of the Delacorte from the early 1960s. And of course, the recently completed Susie Rodriguez and Mitchell Jurgala project really essentially returns this to landscape in quite a brilliant way. But everything you see on the right is new. Next and final. We go to Prospect Park. This is the Woolman Rink, again, another early 60s contemporary of the Delacorte on the left. And then on the right, here's the Todd Williams, Billy Chen 2013 project, which replaces all of that. And in this case, makes a successful but very much visible and modern statement with that new shelter that has been built. So the commission has approved a broad range of interventions as appropriate, and those interventions have largely involved quite substantial demolition and quite new design statements. That again is not what we are proposing here, and as you will hear now from ENIAD, it's a careful and well thought out proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And so Stephen Chu, who is on the presentation, is going to take it from here.
Hello, thank you. My name is Stephen Chu. I'm a design principal at ENIAD Architects. I'm going to walk you through the proposed design. We're going to start with some more close-up renderings, and then we're going to show you some plans, accessibility diagrams, details, and finally, we'll look at some views of the proposed project from a distance around from the park. Next. Okay. The renovated Delacorte will have a massing that is consistent with the existing theater. In fact, the footprint will remain the same. The steel and the footings underneath the wood cladding will be retained. Instead of flat clapboard siding of the existing facade, the proposed cedar wall will be vertically textured with various lengths of smaller scale solid wood cladding. The wall will play with light and shadow, changing with the sun angle, complementing the natural setting of tree trunks and foliage overhead. Next. The exterior wall will be canted slightly outward from the existing footprint at grade. This gives the theater slightly enhanced presence while giving a bit more space in the seating bowl above to achieve a more accessible layout in the grandstand. The new covered canopy and bluestone pathway will be increased to facilitate circulation and increased cover at the central approach to the box office. Building identification will be metal shop painted finish letters at the edge of the canopy. Wayfinding will be located within a discrete metal channel under the canopy wood soffit. You can see here temporary seasonal signage between the permanent wayfinding signage. Okay. Next. This is a view from the Great Lawn. The new lighting towers will be located at the same footings as the existing, so we're not changing their location at all. What we are proposing here is to have the lighting towers host temporary seasonal banners, okay, which would be removed off season. Next. Here's a view of House Right. The path up to Belvedere Castle is on the right side of the image. Just wanted to note in this rendering above, if you can see the existing photo in the lower right, there's actually a tree between the two that are shown above. That was just turned off in our rendering, so you could see a little bit more of the facade. But as you can see in the existing condition, the massing is essentially the same, and in fact, more would be obstructed in this view. Okay, next. This is a view in the evening. The evenings can be quite dark during showtime, intermission, and after show. To assist with a little bit of wayfinding, we're proposing a hint of light up against the facade just to light the texture on the vertical surface. The other lighting would be down lighting underneath the wood soffit to give the pedestrian pathway below proper lighting. And the lettering would not be internally or externally lit. So the rendering looks a little confusing that they're not lit inside, they're not being shined on from the outside. You'll get a little shadow, in fact, because they're being backlit on the facade. Next. The material palette of the theater will be finished with simple materials: cedar, painted metal, wood decking, and zinc canopy. The wood and zinc selected are durable materials appropriate for exterior use and will age naturally. Slight changes in tone and color are expected and welcome. Next. Plans and elevations. Next. We do not plan for any impact to the existing trees surrounding the theater. Okay. Here you can see an existing and proposed ground floor plan. What we're proposing is to increase the pathway 10 feet at the center access to the theater. That's the main approach to the box office. There's usually a big line there and a lot of folks trying to turn house right and left. This gives more room for accessibility as well as wayfinding staff to assist the patrons arriving. Okay, I want to note here that this is a proposed plan. The bluestone pathway would just be retained and increased from the existing design and diagram. We will have an arborist do research and investigate those existing trees. So if there is any damage proposed by this plan, it will be all altered so that that does not occur. Okay. Next. Here is a plan above of the canopy. As you can see, the central portion has been increased to provide more cover at that crunch time of entry. As you can see here, the lighting positions are the same, and the canopies at house right and left will remain the existing projections. Here are elevations. I do want to point out this elevation at the top is what we call an unraveled elevation because the form is round. We flatten it, so you would never see it this way, but you can see here that all the signage proposed would be essentially at the canopy and below. There is 3 times the identification because as you move around the theater with the trees, you actually really only see one of them at a time. You can never see all 3 at once. And you can see the slight cant in the profile at the lower elevation. Next. I do want to cover accessibility. A lot of the changes being created here are due to increased accessibility and improving egress. This is a diagram, a plan of the existing theater footprint. As you can see, the existing delacorte provides only one point of ADA access via ramp at gate 1. This provides access to only the front row of seats. Okay, and I also want to point out that you do not arrive at the cross aisle up above. There have been seats that were placed in over the years of renovations, so that blocked out this what used to be a continuous cross aisle across the seating bowl. Next. The proposed plan would rebuild both ramps at house right and left to provide ADA accessibility both to the front row and switch back to the cross aisle, which we would clear out of all the seats that are currently in there. So this provides accessibility to the front. These are essentially the best seats. In the house, we would be able to arrive at close to 32 ADA positions, and that would almost double the existing count. As you can see here in the plan, there's also the cant of the facade allowed for this yellow zone at the back for us to make up some of the lost seats that would occur down in the revised seating bowl below. We will not increase the number of seats. In fact, we will be lower than the existing seat count. We are also investigating accessibility to the backstage, both a permanent ramp or portable lifts to get at various points of the backstage. There's also an elevator being proposed that would bring an operator from grade up to the booth up at top and the mixing position out in front. Okay, next. Here's a rendering on the left, the existing condition of the ramp and stair to the cross aisle, and the proposed on the right. I'm going to walk you through a few details here. For signage, the existing signage, permanent signage, is the Delacorte Theater on dimensional letters in the upper left, as you can see affixed to the wood wall. The rest of the signage here is seasonal and varies year to year. As you can see that there's never really been a designed location for the signage, so wayfinding and other types of signage is proposed yearly and can often result in an ad hoc, visually random effect. Okay. There are numerous examples of signage in the park. Many are contemporary elements that are celebratory and integrate with architecture and structures. Banners are often deployed on a temporary basis on lampposts around park paths. Okay. Here's some details of the proposed signage. The banner on the left would be removable and only during the season mode. As you can see, they're affixed to the lighting tower. Okay. Down on the lower left, I do want to point out again, the main elements here, the identification on the canopy edge. Everything in red there is temporary. The Delacorte Theater is the only signage that would be permanent on that canopy edge. The other spaces that you see there in light green color are for the box office, concessions, and other wayfinding. The number 3 gate indications here are all actually built into the textured wood. So they're recessed wood members as opposed to anything that's graphic affixed to the building. Okay. Next, these are just some examples of seasonal signage that the award-winning Pentagram would be designing that would be temporary, located in those green zones of the renderings previously. Next. Here we're showing you a couple views of seasonal mode and off-season mode to the right. As you can see, the elements that would be temporary and then removed in the off-season. Next. Okay, here's some details. I just want to point out here in the wall section on the right, you can see the red dashed line indicates the existing Delacorte profile. As you can see, we start at the same footprint. By canting out, we are able to gain that extra row. And because the extra row in the theater does need to step up, we're asking for 2 more feet of height on the wall. You can see here the canopy would retain essentially its top location. We are lifting the bottom ups to get a little more height, and all the wood soffit would be flush so that we can avoid having animals live and burrow into crevices and anything that projects. So all lighting will be flush. Okay. Next, service windows. You can see these are the openings for concessions, box office. We are asking for actually windows that would be operable, that would be for staff comfort and security. There would be a roll down shutter in the evenings for security during show season. And then off season, we're proposing custom plugs that would be mounted flush to the facade. Next, the lighting towers. These are lighting towers 1 through 6, as you can see in the plan. These locations would all be retained. We're keeping the foundations. You can see left there the images of the existing lighting towers. Next, the proposed plan would slightly alter the plan of the space up above. And this is really, the revisions here are for operations and safety of the staff, climbing up, bringing light fixtures, hoisting them up from the ground up, getting fall assist protection in the new design, structural increase in capacity for the pole itself, which is a big cantilever from the ground, and providing safer spaces above for mounting and operating of the light fixtures. Okay, next. The towers 1 and 6, which flank the stage right and left, are currently much lower. As a result, yearly additional structure has to be built to get positions onto the stage. The request is to bring those 2 lighting positions up to the same height as the other 4 lighting positions. Here's a rendering on the left of the existing and the proposed on the right. Okay, seating. In contrast to the existing monochromatic green seats, On the left image, the new seats will be a blend of colors, which would complement the foliage around throughout the year. Fencing. Could you go back one to the plan, please? Okay, this just shows a diagram of the plan of the fencing in yellow and the gates. We're not altering, excuse me, the scope of the fence, but we do need to rebuild them because they are falling apart, as you can see in the images on the left. Okay. The proposed fence, which would be all rebuilt, the cladding for the existing steel gates would also be rebuilt. We are retaining the porous nature of the existing fences, but we are changing them by creating a more solid portion at the bottom, which is often backed up by equipment and temporary structures. The upper portion, we do propose to have a more porous look, as well as at the gate locations. Next. Just another view. The vertical grain and texture would recall the facade treatment of the theater adjacent. Okay. Finally, I'm going to walk you through a few views. These are done in both summer and winter, proposed on the left, and on the right, the right column would be the proposed, existing, left, proposed on the right. I would just look at the winter views because that's where you actually you can see something. You can see there. Really no change. You're from the low elevation looking up from the road. We're going to walk all the way around next. Here you can see it at the main red carpet approach, existing left, proposed on the right. Again, from here, you really wouldn't perceive any change to any massing. Next. This is a view from the Great Lawn. Again, here's a view from the south of the Great Lawn. Okay, next. This is from across Turtle Pond. As you can see here, really, it's mostly the seats that you see. And lastly, we come to Belvedere Castle, looking down from above the terrace. And that completes the design presentation. Thank you.
Well, we thank you for an excellent and thorough presentation. And we'll now see if there are any comments from the public.
Again, if you're a member of the public, you can go to the reactions button at the bottom of your screen and select raise hand. Nothing from the public, David. You want to go in reverse order?
Go in reverse order. Thank you, Saida.
Marco, confirm unmuting.
Thank you, Saida. Thank you, David. I think your proposal, basically, I put together saying that this is a recladding of the facade. You don't increase in volume, except a minimum increase of volume of the canopy and probably the floor too, for accessibility. And that's it. That's basically what it is, the project. The ADA compliance, I think everything is fine. I don't want to comment because it makes a lot of sense. The part of the fencing, I think it's very attractive, your proposal, because it creates, it maintains the natural effect of the proposal. And I think it's good within the concept of the park. What it caught my attention is the lettering, the signage. That is too aggressive. I find it a little bit, it should be more discreet. The temporary banners are fine. And the temporary lettering, I think is, it is disturbing, that part. So basically my comments will go in that part because of the rest of the proposal or the proposed is, I think is perfectly fine for me. And I think pretty much I cover all the issues, and thank you.
Thank you, Marco. May, confirm unmuting.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for the very thoughtful presentation. I don't have any immediate questions or concerns. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Anthony, confirm unmuting.
Okay, this is short. This is basically fine. You know, you always wish that certain elements could have been smaller or slightly different, but I think that this is really absolutely okay.
Thank you, Anthony. Sarah, confirm unmuting.
I think this design is
Sarah, can you speak up a little bit?
Oh, is this better?
A little bit.
Okay, it might be my headset. I'll try to speak loudly. I support this design. I think that it adds to the original design and updates it with but leaves the you know, anyone who knows where the public theater is would be able to recognize it, and even in its new form. And I love the updates, including the fencing and especially the multicolored seats. I'm actually really looking forward to seeing how that looks against the park backdrop, and it seems like it would be fun and whimsical in person, you know, when you're in the theater, and then it would be additive to the landscape from afar. So thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Alita, confirm unmuting.
Thanks, Saida. Well, I feel like I'm missing something, because while the idea of accessibility and using materials that blend in with the park are all unobjectionable, I feel like the fact that you have Kramer Levin and Kassira makes me think that I'm just missing something. Some of the words being used were very imprecise for architects, like it's slightly bigger, it's seasonal, without being more specific, which is very unusual for most of the architects that present to this committee. So I'd like to know more about those lights. They look like they're double the size of the other ones. I'd like to know more about what you mean by seasonal. I'd like to know more about how bright those wayfinding lights actually will be, because the park, the theater is used, as you said, very seasonally. It's still light out, I think, even in August when people are attending the plays. I don't know how long they run. I don't know why all that light is necessary, but I feel like I'm missing something. Certainly in one of your drawings where you had the trees, it looks like it's the footprint around some of it seems to be larger. I don't know how much larger. And that's exactly what I mean, is that a lot of the information that we normally get in detail is not presented in detail. Thank you.
Mr. Chu, if you'd like to respond to some of that. Mr. Chu, giving you a chance to respond.
Okay. Yes, no, thank you. I think that in terms of the dimensions, they are in the documents. Alita, I'm sorry if I didn't state them that clearly, but the request is for the cant would produce a 2-foot increase in the wall height, and it would project out, I think it was about 3'8" or 3'9". It's on the slide. But that's really the increase in the volume and effect to the wall. The canopy, we also dimensioned as an increase from that 8 just at the center point to the 18, and 10 feet for the paving, bluestone paving at the grade level.
And this is Rosalind from the public. To answer your question about the length of the season, typically we perform starting in mid-May and run until about mid-September. So usually, certainly in the middle of the summer, we have the sunlight there, but at those earlier points, we don't. And just to clarify or build on what Stephen was saying, none of the signage is lit. So I wanted to specifically address that concern since you mentioned it. And I think the representation of the team here is really, this is a complicated review process because it's in a scenic landmark and it's landmarks review. So we just wanted to bring all the best thought partnership here so we can be able to answer any questions and take the process seriously and undertake it correctly. So there's no sort of, I just wanted to let you know that's the purpose of that. And I think, was there another question that you asked that we haven't answered?
I guess the size of the lights on the poles, because
sure.
In May, the light in May is the same as the light in July, right? 1 month before the solstice is the same as 1 month afterwards. So all the way up until, I don't know, sometime at the end of the summer. I just don't know how anything is measurable in terms of the light emanating from underneath the canopy and those pole lights. I mean, they're a lot larger. They're taller, they're wider, they're deeper. And so what impact does that have on the park? I mean, I should also say that I'm a huge theater fan and I love the idea of the public. So this has nothing to do with that, but it also has to do with people maybe using the park around there. That's all.
Sure. So in terms of the light towers themselves, as Stephen mentioned, they're replacing in kind what's currently there. So we don't imagine that there will be significantly more fixtures on the poles themselves, and they're only directed at the stage and they're only on during performance time. So they're not illuminating the rest of the park. They're only illuminating the stage so that the audience members can see. Because we produce primarily Shakespeare, sometimes the shows go until 11 or 11:30 at night. So by that point, it's quite dark, and without them, we wouldn't be able to do the show. I think, as Stephen mentioned also, the size is the size of these landing parts are increasing a little bit, but that's really a safety OSHA compliance upgrade. So that's the driving factor for that.
I can speak a little bit to that too. As you can see in the diagram on the right, the operators are both standing at 2 levels, and on the left, they're not totally protected at the top. So the height is not being increased, they're being brought down a little lower, actually, in terms of the bottom of it.
Right.
And yep, sorry, go ahead, sorry.
No, I'm sorry for interrupting you. I could see the height's not any different. The overall length is, it just comes down lower, and
correct.
It seems wider as well. It was just the lack of measurements that the lack of the measurements that just give me make me more curious, I suppose.
Okay. Yeah, the plan is being slightly enlarged, as you can see the dimensions there. And I really just want to stress that this is a very functional space, and the current condition, unfortunately, tends to be really unsafe because there's not much room for the operators to move and have all those lights and position them. You can see the change to the front face has been straightened as well. As much as I also like the round shape of the existing, they can't mount well their light fixtures and point to the stage. They end up sort of getting in the way of the other ones. So by having that front face straight, they don't put all these poles that then attach out to be able to get to the right angles. So we're trying to design it to make the actual operations work more efficiently, which may help them be safer and have less actual extra attachments to them as well.
We certainly want safety and beauty. So thank you.
Sure.
So confirm unmuting.
Yeah, thank you. Excellent presentation, excellent design. It's beautiful. There was a lot of detail there, and you were very explicit about it. It was very easy to follow and easy to understand. I will wholeheartedly approve this. I would just like a little bit of clarification of the wayfinding lights. And I'm not adverse to what Marco said. If you could find a way to make that the permanent lettering, even the seasonal lettering, a little smaller, great, I'd like you to do it. It certainly won't stop me from heartily supporting this. Can you just show us again, because I don't remember it, the wayfinding light, how the fixtures are and all that?
Mr. Chu?
Yes, can you share yes, thank you, Roz. Okay, so, oh, okay. All right, so the permanent elements, just to be clear, Michelle, is that the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4 that you see in the elevation below, those are not blue in reality. They're just a diagram to show where they are, but they will in fact be recessed in the wood texture itself. So it's sort of like you have variety of textures, a little in and out, and then those are all recessed so that you get the effect really camouflaged into the woodwork. So that will be a number in the wood. The sort of lime green zoned areas in the diagram indicate the location for temporary signage. So those would be changed every show season. Okay, and they occur in the upper 18-inch band under the canopy. You see that up there, and then they occur at certain locations between box office windows, concessions, etc., at the pedestrian level for viewing. All that's under the canopy, and then again, the banners are outside of the walkway, but those are also temporary and removed at the end of the show season. The lettering is there at 18 inches on top, and I do want to repeat that the pink, I know it's a little hard to read this, but the pink, which is Free Shakespeare in the Park, public Free Shakespeare in the Park, is not permanent. The Delacorte Theater portion is permanent on the canopy edge.
Yeah, it was the lighting. I'm clear on this, and I'm fine with that.
All right.
Yeah, this is what I wanted to see.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, how much of this lighting is on all the time? Is it only seasonal? What kind of wattage is it? Is it dimmer? Do you do dimmer? That it was the exterior lighting, the wayfinding.
Okay, so the exterior lighting would only be on during the show time. So those up lights would turn off once the show was over. All these lights would generally go off. I do want to also make clear that the signage, although in the rendering, it looks almost like it's internally lit, needs to be toned down. It would actually be back. The light is behind on the facade, so they would actually be more in shadow. All the down lighting that occurs to get proper lighting on the walkway below occurs in this wood soffit underside. And so those are all flush lights that would just shine down to the ground. Go ahead, sorry.
No, you go ahead. I'm sorry, I thought you were finished. That's all right.
There's one last little piece, which is a cane rail at the base of the wall, which we just have a light in there just to spit a little bit of light again on the ground plane. That's it.
Okay, and so I'm assuming that to exit the theater after you leave that area, you're now dependent on the park lighting for the public and find your way through those paths. That was what terrific.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Thanks
By
very
code,
much.
we want to give everyone proper lighting to get out of the whole zone of the theater. Then they're in the park.
They're in the park.
Paths, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Elizabeth, confirm unmuting.
I think that this is excellent. I can support this. I would like to put one little request, is that the temporary signage, please ask them to be a bit less garish. I do think that this is well over, but as it's temporary, I guess it's not going to affect my vote. I think everything else is very good, and I will support it.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Kimberly.
Thanks, Saida. Thanks, David. I don't really have any further questions to ask, and I echo Elizabeth's comments. I think I can support this application. Thank you.
Is Christina still there?
She is not.
She's not? Okay.
No.
So it's come to me.
It has.
Well, I would just echo the word excellent. I thought it was extremely well done, extremely thoughtful. I think the canting is an excellent way of giving a little bit more space and a little more interest, actually. I think that the signage always comes in for somebody not liking it, but the reality is an 18-inch high letter, and me letting it be a little bit colorful, I think is right for readability, and I think it's also right for the theatricality and the excitement and the fun of being there. And I think you did the right thing on the towers. I actually think the towers will work a lot better now, and as you point out, be a lot safer. I think that, I could go on, but all I would do is tell you how good a job you did. So, my thanks. And I look forward to seeing the reality. So with that, I think we should get a resolution and a vote. Can I have a resolution? Anthony, you're always good at resolutions.
Okay, 1 second. Anthony, confirm unmuting.
Unmute. Yes. Okay, so this would be a resolution to approve the renovations to the Delacorte Theater as presented.
Do I have a second? Michelle and Marco, are you seconding? Thank you. And Alita, you're seconding. Thank you. We got a lot of seconds. I think we should call the roll, please.
Okay, 1 second while I unmute everyone. Okay, Elizabeth?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Alita?
Yes.
Sarah? Sarah?
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Anthony?
Yes.
May?
Yes.
Marco?
Yes.
Kimberly?
Yes.
And David?
Yes. Okay, Saida, thank you, and thank you to INEAD, the whole group of consultants. And is there any new business or any old business? I don't see any raised hands. Would anybody like to make a motion to adjourn?
Marco?
Marco,
Motion to adjourn.
seconded by Michelle. I think it's unanimous. Thank you all. See you Wednesday night.